Ladies and gentlemen, listeners, lovers, and friends, welcome back to the podcast. Coming to you up above Dave Grohl Alley from Two Ticks and the Dog Productions, I'm your host, Jim Fogarty. Our guest today was a integral part of the beginning of Two Ticks and the Dog Productions, and if it wasn't for this next guest, we may not be sitting here. I can't say that for certain, but who knows? This guy was a massive contributor back in the early days of Two Ticks and the Dog's trajectory into commercial making and documentary making, and he's gone on to do some amazing projects, win an Emmy, has produced and directed and even animated some things. He's here to talk to us about it today. But before we get to him, we got to thank our sponsors and shout out to them. Thank you to the Station Square Restaurant, Salvatore's Italian Grill, Modern Methods Brewery, which of course is located down the road, down the alley from us on Dave Grohl Alley, Brokers Realty, my man Dan Alvarez, and Prosperity Partners. If you are looking to retire or get some type of financial solvency for the future, look no further than Prosperity Partners and my man Zach Byler. All right, I'm going to introduce this guest. I don't know how I'm going to edit this video. I probably won't show him until I say his name. But he is a handsome son of a gun. He invented blue steel, the look of blue steel. And he is my partner in crime back from the Bowling Green State University days. We both graduated together from the film studies program. He is an Emmy Award-winning producer, a very creative genius mastermind, and just a wonderful human being. My deep love and admiration, and as I introduce one of my great friends, Mr. James Waters, welcome to the show.
What's up, Fogarty?
You got to speak into the mic, man. You know this.
Oh yeah. My bad.
You hear that deep, sultry voice, ladies? If you're not watching this, I'll describe him to you. He goes about 6'4" ish. He's got a wonderful beard now. It's salt and pepper. His hair's done real nice. I'm oozing with envy of this handsome specimen who played basketball at Southwest Florida.
And I played at Flagler College in St. Augustine, Florida for a year, which was fun. I got to come to Warren more often. All these compliments are
makes you feel good.
Very nice.
Yeah, well, they're all true.
So
get us from Canton to BG. How'd you end up in BG, Bowling Green State, where we met?
Goodness gracious. So actually, out of high school, I had no idea really what I wanted to do. I played basketball at McKinley. Kind of went through different colleges and different majors. I started at Malone College, which is a Quaker school. Probably not my jam. And started out in sports medicine.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so then I had to skin a cat, and I was done with sports medicine. Dissecting a cat is no fun.
You're a humanitarian, man.
Oh, yeah. And then I went off to Flagler College with a really good friend of mine. And I had the opportunity to play basketball there, which was fun. But it was probably a little bit too much fun. So then that led me back home. And then I had like a deep conversation with my dad at the time where he was like, find something that you want to do that doesn't feel like work. And then you'll never feel like you worked a day in your life. And then searching through all their stuff, I was like, film, producing, that could be kind of cool. It was the 90s, too, so it was a lot different then than it is now. That was where, the Kevin Smith started to take off and a lot of the indie stuff. And I was like, that could be cool. And then, poof, got into the film studies stuff at Bowling Green, and that's all she wrote.
Yeah, man.
So it was meant to be.
Well, you've gone on to have an incredible career over the last 20 plus years, 25 years. Next year, we'll be celebrating our 30-year reunions from our respective high schools. And then so 26 years, basically.
Oh, yeah, it's hard to believe.
And you went off to first Chicago out of school and then L.A.
Correct.
James and I came from like the same school of thought, which is why we were kindred spirits. Plus, he's a large human being, and I like to talk a lot of shit sometimes when people talk shit to me. So it's always good to hang out with big dudes when you're in the bars.
But you were the fly, though. You were like, watch out for the fly.
Watch out, he's gonna come get you, man.
Oh yeah,
he'll sting you. a fly with a stinger. Maybe I should have been the hornet instead of the fly.
The hornet would be better than the fly.
But we ended up like from that same school of thought. The Jim Jarmusch's, the Spike Lees, the Kevin Smiths, the Edward Burns. Like, it was like, we'll do it on our own. We don't need, hey, you don't have a dolly track? Fuck it. We'll get a grocery cart. You don't have a Steadicam? Fuck it. We'll build one. You don't have whatever it was like DIY. It was kind of DIY film school at BG.
Oh, 100%. We were scrappy.
We were scrappy.
And I think that was an advantage, right? Like, so even working in the Chicago or LA markets, it wasn't always like, you go to school like USC or NYU, they got a whole department full of every camera you would need. And these are the film days too. Like, so a lot of the projects I came up on were 35 mil, which is a whole nother ball game. But, you had to be resourceful. Like, not even the big jobs, they wouldn't always have everything. So you had to like adapt or like figure it out or, make a location work, but that training is what's made it a lot easier now with the digital stuff, because it's funny, like now everybody's a producer, right? Every kid out of college is a producer.
Yeah.
But they don't know how to like save a budget. They don't know how to like, turn a room into 4 different locations if they have to, those kind of things.
I always felt BG was really good. We lobbied for more production classes and got them towards the end of our tenure there. But I always felt BG. I didn't appreciate it at the time. You can just, if you don't have to listen, just pull it. Oh yeah, you just pull it up. Yeah. Mic difficulties for those not watching. BG was kind of like, that program was an interdisciplinary program too. We weren't really housed under, I think at the time we may have been housed under theater when we graduated.
It was because we had to take like theater classes,
TCOM, video communication technology. We went to a lot of different stuff. And Jack Nakbar, did you have class with Nakbar?
I did not have Nakbar.
Nakbar was like the first. He started the popular culture program. He was I think Jack Nakbar actually was the first person, and I think BG.
I think I did. Was he a younger dude?
Jack was an older guy, but he had a TA, and I forget that guy's name, that taught a lot of his.
I had that dude.
I did too.
Yeah.
We might have been in that class together.
That was fun. It like broke down like the history of pop culture, really. Like,
yes, right.
And even from like how ads are formed and things to think about for subliminals and stuff like that, which was cool.
Well, it really opened your mind to be able to think critically and think logically during production. So it wasn't, it was like, oh man, really want to learn how to shoot on this, Arri 16 millimeter, or I really want to learn how to shoot, and that was a transitional period too, where a lot of that stuff was starting to phase out and digital video was starting to phase in. So we were on kind of that transitional period. So I always wanted, like, man, how am I going to be able to direct anything or know what I'm even talking about if I don't have these production classes? But we had all these like academic classes that taught theory and philosophy and the aesthetics and how to achieve that. And it was a lot of kind of like foundational knowledge, kind of behind the scenes stuff. A lot of like International Film Directors Week, they'd bring a director in from Canada or France or wherever, and you would study with these, like Norman Jewison was one, Paul Sarosi came, he was Adam Ogoyan's DP.
We had a guy from Canada did the Sweet Hereafter who came with
that was Paul Sarosi.
Yeah, he was fantastic.
Yeah, I felt like at the time when we graduated, like, man, I don't have enough production classes. I don't know enough about this stuff. But then once you started learning more kind of on the job, you went to Chicago. I came back here because I really wanted to make a film, and I got a job. Shout out to my man Mike Sparacino at Advantage Video Productions. Mike's no longer with Advantage. He sold the company, but he was a great guy to work for and really learn kind of guerrilla style commercial making, if you will. And once you learn the gear, it was like, oh, you know what? I really appreciate what BG did, because they gave us all this background knowledge that we could then apply. So James just showed me a music video that he made for like 10 grand. It looks like it was shot. It looks like it was a $50,000 or $60,000 video. And some of the, I was asking him, there's a scene where the guy's like kind of like standing in water in an all blackout thing. There's all these practical effects. And I'm asking him, how'd you guys do that in post? He's like, no, it's practical effects. I think that's what BG and some of these other scrappier places, I'm not knocking any of the film schools or whatever, but like some of these scrappier places, you had to learn how to adapt and evolve to get high production value out of a low budget.
Oh, 100%. And now everything's, we'll fix it in post, or we'll, do this in After Effects, or do AI will do it, right? But you don't necessarily get the same feelings for those things. The biggest thing too is like planning, right? Pre-production was so important in college and life and any production, because it saves you on the back end, like 100%. If you plan things accordingly, your shoot should go smooth. If things do come up, they're easy to fix. You know what you're looking to create. If you're not doing that pre-production, like, it's a nightmare.
Yeah. The preparation is the key. I think because we learned on, we did have some 16 millimeter classes, and I shot some 8 millimeter on my own, for other projects. But I think because of that, and you had a can of 16 millimeter film was not cheap in comparison to a little mini DV or now a solid state SD or any of the cards that you can shoot on. Like, not that some of those cards are not cheap either. However, in comparison with film, it was like you had to have your shit together. You wouldn't shoot the rehearsal. Like, how many commercials we go through? Like, all right, I'm gonna roll on this one, but like this, let's just shoot it. And you'd shoot like 10 different takes until you got it right. You couldn't do that with film unless you had like an unbelievable budget. Right?
Exactly. And then it's also planned too, right? Because it depends on how big the mag was on the camera. You only have X amount of minutes to do something, within that thing. So you really have to plan that out. And it's not like you can just go to the Walmart to get another SD card or something, right? Like, you had to like go to, Fuji or Kodak at the time.
Yeah.
To go buy crazy amounts of film.
Yeah, and those places weren't close by, and they weren't cheap. I think the closest place for us at BG to buy film was out of Chicago.
Yeah, Chicago was the spot.
Lenten time or anytime, Station Square Seafood is delivered daily and always prepared fresh every time. And now to go with your salmon, swordfish, or any favorite dish, Station Square's small batch signature seasonings. Lemon pepper, Cajun, or charcoal steak rub.
Need great food fast? Visit mysalvatores.com and order anything on our menu for a quick pickup. All of your favorites ready when you are. Specials available on mysalvatores.com. Order today.
With that buzz of select Brazilian Dolce coffee beans that brew Ipanema's seductively sweet beach coffee, they mingle a flawless measure of their crisp Darlene lager. Somehow, somewhere in a secret lab with modern methods, they blend a perfectly balanced, light, uplifting, gold medal winning brew known as the Percolator. Available at Modern Methods Tap Room or the new Darlene Lounge on Courthouse Square in downtown Warren.
I remember kind of calling up and getting prices for film for a project for 16 millimeter, and them giving me a price, and I said, okay, cool, I'll call you back. I'm gonna call this other place. I'm just kind of price shopping, and I'd ask for like the tail ends, whatever wasn't used from someone else's production.
Exactly.
is what you get. And then I wouldn't call the other place. I would call them. I would wait 10 minutes, and I would call back and say, hey, I just called, Fuji or whatever the other place was, and I'd say, nah, they're giving it to me for whatever the price was per feet. I just make a number up that was lower than the person that quoted me. But I really want to go with you guys because you guys are closer, and, if you can match their deal, and every time they would match. Oh, okay, yeah, no problem.
Because those are short ends. They're not going to do anything with them. They're just going to sit in a refrigerator forever, which is wild. Because that's the other thing. You have to store it right. And then the thing about film, too, is processing, right?
And you got to expose it right.
Yeah.
People are like, what's a fucking light meter?
Yeah.
Remember, like, people carrying around light meters and stuff?
It's wild.
taking measurements. How far away will this be when I can pull focus? Or, is it just a different animal? There weren't autofocus lenses. Yeah, it's interesting. I haven't thought about that in a long time, but that's kind of interesting to think back about that process of making visual art or video art, not even video art, but film art, or what turned into video art, versus now. Now it's like, I got this iPhone, but I still need to know. I watched a project the other day. It was might have been on Tubi, or it might have been on Vudu. It was on one of the, low, I don't say lower end, but a lower end streaming service, free streaming service. It was a music documentary. But I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, it got distribution. I'm watching the video, and there is like this much headspace above the dude. They're centered in the center. The light's hitting just like all these little, and sometimes you can't avoid it for whatever reason, the space you're shooting in, or, you can't get the light right or whatever. But like, they had broken so many
rules.
Yeah, so many like kind of standards. I was like, man, who taught this person how to compose the shot? You know, they taught us that in BG like year one,
day one.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still times I'll struggle with the 180 roll when you're trying to figure out cuts or get motion in, like the MGM spot. We had a couple of things where we're playing with the 180 to see what would work and match cut.
That's a great. How long did that take to shoot that?
We had a 3-day shoot there. It was just at the end of September, which is cool. So those should be out hopefully by start of November, which will be neat.
It looks awesome.
And they'll have a 3-year shelf life pretty much for them.
Oh, that's cool.
Will be cool.
Now, James just showed me. Was that a 30? That seemed like
that was
longer.
a
60.
That was a 60.
Yeah. Okay. James just showed me this MGM spot's like really sweet. The way that it's cut and the way that it's designed. How did you get involved in it? What's the budget on something like that? How does How does a
I'm a kid from Canton. Let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah, we're
just city kids at heart.
But how do you get on a project like that? For kids that are getting out of school and they've got, I had a kid up here that was from like Savannah College of Art and Design, and all these like, they're chomping at the bit. They want to work. They want to get. How do they get on a project something like that?
So that project has been a labor of love for a very long time with that client. They were the Hard Rock before.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So, there's a J Auto group that we had done some spots for in the past that wanted to shoot some stuff at the Hard Rock with Bernie Kosar at the time. So we shot with them. This is probably, 10 years ago-ish, 8 years ago-ish. And that led into a connection to the Hard Rock. And then I became like their monthly, I was like their monthly client. Like they were my monthly client where we're editing videos and, doing all their commercials and that kind of stuff. And then when they switched over to MGM, then they kept me around. And then lately we've been doing a lot of like animated, we basically if you're a member of MGM, you would get like the flyer in the mail. We kind of, re-whip that into a commercial monthly and some other video assets that they need. But they've always wanted to do this like sizzle property of the video or of their property, a video of their property. So that's the whole point of the commercial. And that's where the 60 really kind of highlights everything. And then the 30s and 15 cut downs will be a little more like action driven. So it's really, they have a good creative team there. Their lead really, it was a lot of back and forth. Like, this is our idea. We wanted to have this vibe. The transitions that we use, we do a lot of like, wipes and that kind of thing. Is kind of motivated from like the TikTok kind of videos, where like you'll take your camera and push into something and now you're somewhere else. So that influence, because they're a little younger of a marketing team. So I wanted to give it like the casino movie vibe, but with, that TikTok influence. So it kind of fits generations, right? And it goes back to that planning of like, how do we get this to work? Budget wise, they spent a fair amount to make it. I mean, we had, Alexa Mini, we shot on Ingenue lenses, cinema primes, I had dollies, I had grips, I had jibs. It was crazy. Like
everybody in the spot, actors.
Mostly, I had Megan McRae was an option. She used to be a host on 92.5 radio and did a bunch of things, so she fit a role pretty well, and they liked her look.
Is that the chick that gets out of the car?
No, she was, so actually I was able to cast her. She was part of a PBS series. She was the hostess for
cool.
the City Centric series. She's actually a, Stephanie Marie, she's actually a Youngstown native.
Nice.
Who's, was also Miss Puerto Rico, I think, 2 years ago. Has done some things, so, but great personality, does a great job on set. So kind of really stood out too. So
Want to be debt-free faster, save money in taxes and insurance, and retire with more wealth? Call Zach Byler at Green Life Holdings today for full-service financial advisory. 330-219-5225. Top Shelf Bar, 450 wines on hand, and your choice of local craft beers, including Modern Methods Brewery Double IPA, now available at the Station Square Restaurant. If you're looking to buy new or sell your current home or commercial property in Northeast Ohio or Northwestern Pennsylvania, look no further than Brokers Realty at brokerssold.com. Yeah, that's a good spot. You just mentioned City Centric, which is a thing that PBS is doing now, and they go to different cities and they focus on like kind of their movers and shakers of the city, right?
Yeah, so it's actually PBS Western Reserve. And their past president and I had kind of worked on some ideas of like how can Western Reserve kind of get more into the communities that they serve and, you know, kind of get back out there, so to speak, because people kind of forget about PBS sometimes with all the streaming and everything. So as an opportunity, we picked 6 different cities in Northeast Ohio and Western PA and had 6 different characters. So there was like the entrepreneur, you know, so there's different people that are doing business things, you know, there was the revitalizer, the, you know, people that are restoring old buildings and kind of turning them into different uses. The future, a lot of the youth, and, you know, kind of like, you know, what are the, you know, what's the forward equity in the community that's going to kind of build. So the entertainers, the humanitarians, and the politicians.
Okay.
So those are the 6. And they're just almost like little mini profiles, but the big goal of those are, you know, kind of a reflection of each of those cities. So it's a nice look of like, you know, here are these characters each city, but like how are they different, but how are they the same? And, you know, how can we inspire others to kind of be their own character, if that makes sense?
Yeah, that's
you know?
cool.
So I think they've went over pretty well. They just finished the airing, and I think they're available on stream now on their website and their app. But it was a cool project to kind of get to know a lot of people from a lot of different places. So.
Yeah, I saw a friend of mine from the Vindies, Jackie Popovic, was one of the features for Youngstown. So yeah, I'm kind of interested to see that.
Yeah, super cool. And then, like, even what she says, that she loves being from Youngstown, that you know, you can move to LA or whatever, but you can do it from here, you know, and that's kind of, you know, even part of the point of this, what we do, right? Like,
right.
When we got out of college, you had to move to a big city, or you could do a small thing, you know, here.
Sure.
So that's kind of interesting, both of our paths, and then they end up circling back to Ohio anyways. You know, but you to really like be on a big movie set, you had to be, you know, somewhere else unless they were shooting on location or something.
Right.
But now, like, anything's possible. Like, you know, people make millions of dollars on YouTube, you know, but it depends on what stories you want to tell and how do you want to get it out there. And, you know, but it goes back to that, the rules of filmmaking that were instilled upon us of, you know, it doesn't matter the equipment, doesn't matter the distribution. If you understand the rules, you can make something good.
Yeah, we came up in a time where there were a lot of indie projects going on, but there wasn't a lot of studio stuff happening in Northeast Ohio or Western Pennsylvania. And if you went back maybe 10 or 15 or even 20 years before that, sporadically, you know, you had the Deer Hunter was shot in Cleveland, different scenes, the wedding scene, the church scene, shot in PA, different parts of Pennsylvania where they're hunting. You'd have like Christmas Story, right? They still have that house up in Cleveland. But, like, those projects were, like, few and far between. Within the last decade, you know, Ohio's had the Avengers and Spider-Man, and Pittsburgh's had Batman and, like, major tentpole films. So it's kind of, I get envious sometimes. Like, oh, man, I wish that those opportunities were available, you know, locally or, you know, regionally when we first got out of school. Because, you know, a PA level job is typically, that's the job you get right out of college.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you might not even be done, you know, you might be summer break.
Yeah. You could be 18 and be a production assistant.
Right. And so, you know, there weren't a lot of those, like, bigger opportunities to cut your teeth on. There were smaller opportunities. You know, there were indie films, a couple films being shot, like Tiger Warsaw was a local film. Ray Mancini had a film that he was in. I can't remember the name of it. But there was opportunities to you know, to get entry-level positions on that, but not like it is today. And, of course, the technology isn't what it was then as it is now. And so now, again, you can pick up your iPhone and go get to work.
Oh, yeah.
You know, my son will shoot stuff on his iPad, you know, with his, he's got like a little channel, The Ghost, and he'll shoot stuff on his iPad. And then I'm like, what's he doing? I'm like, hey, dude, what are you doing, man? Like, I don't want you on there gaming all night. He's like, I'm not gaming. What are you doing? I'm editing. I'm like, oh, okay. He's editing his videos on the iPad. You know, the same device that he's shooting with is the same device that he's editing with. And it's rudimentary, but I'm looking at it. I was watching his videos last night, like, this stuff's pretty good. Like, you know, he's pretty good, but like the technology is not, it's not so terrible, or the packaging of these programs are not so terrible. Like, you could do some professional projects on this. You know, in the right hands, this instrument is a viable possibility. Maybe not for like an MGM or, you know, a project like that, but
even if you took that program, right, and put it in, you know, 1998 or 1999, right, when we were on those Media 100 machines.
Yeah, Media 100.
Like, if you messed up anything, you wouldn't know for 5 hours until it rendered out a 30-second thing you did.
Yeah.
Because I'll never forget, like, I had to get a final done, and I might be a procrastinator. So I spent like 18 hours in this stupid computer lab trying to edit on these machines, and they would take forever if they did not fail in the first place.
Yeah,
like,
right.
you know, and then now, like, you want to edit a video, you just sit on your phone. Like,
yeah, right.
It makes no sense. So it's, you know, the technology has allowed, you know, artists and creators to make more things. I think the big thing is just like being conscious of what you create, right? So, you know, garbage in, garbage out, you're gonna end up with garbage, right?
Right.
But if you're taking time to, you know, have a message and you know, want to put something out there that's positive and you know, inspirational, I think that's the key. You know, to motivate things or make something beautiful rather than, there's enough ugliness in the world, probably.
Amen. Cliff Vaughn.
Oh, good old Cliff.
You can't polish a turd.
Yep.
And you must have the ability to kill your darlings.
Exactly.
2 rules that every scriptwriter / filmmaker / anybody that's worked in any kind of art, you got to have that mentality. Sometimes we get attached to these things and we don't realize that these ideas or the produced, you know, the produced idea might not have come out the way that we thought it was in our head. You don't have to hold on to that. You can let that go. Or it might not work for the story that you're trying to tell. It's clever, or if it doesn't fit, if it doesn't move the story forward, get rid of it.
Yeah. And too many people do that with everything. I mean, you see it with, you know, even a 15-second commercial can have too much in it, right?
Oh, yeah, right.
So it's like, you know, it's almost Hemingwayan to some degree of like, you know, he would throw away his first 2 or 3 chapters of a book because it was just a waste, you know, like just too much backstory or whatever that doesn't need to be needed. You just get right in the story.
Keep it Spartan.
But good old Cliff, funny thing, this is what people should learn. If they take everybody's connected to somebody, right? So Cliff, obviously, our script writing teacher in Bowling Green, But then when I decided to create a film festival in wonderful Canton, Ohio, I had reached out to like the local college at Malone, and their like lead professor was Andrew Rudd, who coincidentally is like best friends with Cliff Vaughn, and was getting his master's, I think, at Bowling Green when we were there at the same time too. But like we didn't realize that like we kind of crossed over there. And mind you, it's probably 20 years since we've been out of college to have that connection. So completely wild of how small the film business is.
It really is.
You know, that's what, you know, for all the young kids out there, be nice to everybody because you never know.
Yeah, the people you step on the way up might be the asses you kiss on the way back down.
100%.
That's totally true. I think what's kind of cool about your existence in the art world, in the film art world, and in production in and of itself is that you're always. I was talking to somebody. I was talking to Murph last night, Eric Murphy last night.
Oh yeah.
And I said, I you know, he's like, man, you're staying at the studio late. You know, I said, I had to wrap some stuff up. I got a guest on the prod tomorrow. Who is it? I said, I don't know if did you ever meet James Waters? Because he was in L.A. You guys kind of missed each other in L.A. He's still in L.A. now. He lives in Long Beach. But he was like, oh, yeah. He's like, what a great dude. And I go, yeah. And I've had forgotten that James shied away from telling you he's the director of the Canton Film Festival. And so he had Eric Murphy's film there, Congressman of Crime Town, and about James trafficking. It's a great documentary. But everybody that I've ever talked with that either met you from a production part of their life or just in passing, just knew you like, you know, because you lived in town for, you know, James lived here for 3
years, I think.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, Waters, tell that dude I said hello. My mom says hi, by the way.
I love your mom.
Called me earlier.
And God bless your grandmother. Such a sweet lady.
Yeah, thanks, man. She's about to turn 100.
I know, it's amazing.
it's knocking on wood, man. I'm not taking anything for granted. We're just, you know, every day's a blessing. But that approach of every day's a blessing and trying to help people, you are always very. Oh, Tony Batty was in here shooting some stuff with me last year, maybe the beginning of this year. I think it was last year. And we were talking about you, and he's like, man, what's Waters up to? How's he doing? Like, everyone you came across always has a very good feeling because you put off a good vibe. You're just a great human being, which is sometimes contradictory to the philosophy that I think some people borrowed from, like, the business world of the 80s, like the Gordon Gekko kind of
God, yes,
thing.
Production.
Yeah, and it's like, it's not a competition, right? It's not like... your success doesn't detract from my success or wanting for success, right? Like we're all kind of, you're in it together.
Yes.
Like I think when we're younger, there's because it's ingrained, this idea of competitiveness or the competitive nature. I ran into a dude that I've worked with a couple times, since, but I remember when I first heard about him and first kind of met him, I was like, I don't know about that dude, whatever. And I just sent him a film, a screener, like a Vimeo, like a locked video or whatever. The director, Bill Schotten, sent me.
Okay.
And I sent him a thing, and because he wanted to see, he's like, where can I see this thing? And I said, I don't like film festivals now because we already did this premiere, and I don't know where it's going to be, and yada yada. So I had asked Bill, and he sent me the thing. He's like, yeah, you can send it to him. So I sent it to him. He sent this thing back. It was very complimentary, and I thought to myself, why did I think that there doesn't need to be a competition? It should be a collaboration.
100%, especially in like where we live, right? Like,
right.
Because you could be the best person here, right, and take all the work, right? Mm-hmm. What does that do for the area? It's a window. I mean, there's so many different stories to tell. So many of it, and with distribution now, like, it's important. It's not that you need to be better than somebody else. It's just, the goal is to hopefully make sure that people are telling stories the right way. And if you have a stronger group of people doing that, you're going to attract more things here, whether it's commercials, movies, documentary, whatever. Like, you're putting, you have an opportunity to shine a light in our communities, which I think is so important for us. And like, with you caring about Warren, my love affair for good old Canton, Ohio, we see the possibility here. It's what we love. It's what we grew up with. And you want to shine a light in it. And the more people that are good at what they do here is going to attract more people. And that was the other thing about we're talking about the Cleveland films, right? The biggest reason why they've been so successful is because of, they've trained crew. They have amazing crew there. They have the tax credit. The film commission does a great job. They do a wonderful job at locations. And when people come in, they go, because a lot of times Hollywood movies are coming because they want to save the money, right? And then they get all the bottom positions, and they're, and they bring, most films will bring, director, producer, director of photography, and a couple of the key people, and then kind of hire down. But what people are starting to realize is, like, they don't have to bring in all those positions all the time. Like, there are DPs here that could shoot features. There are, all the equipment is great. Like, there's a great couple of rental houses. Like, when we did an MGM show, like, I had to send my camera, had crazy lenses, movies, dollies. I mean, everything that you'd find at a Hollywood rental house, which is wild, because we're in Cleveland, Ohio.
Sure.
But that's gotten strong because of collaborations. I mean, Wayfair shoots 90% of their ads in Cleveland. That's a big, international brand. So it's just amazing what we can do here. Like, the Russo brothers probably would have shot more films here if we had the sound stages. I think that's the biggest thing Cleveland's lacking, but so many opportunities.
Well, opportunities for location and talent. And, I think a lot of times people are like, which is true. I just came back from LA. It's still, it's still the epicenter of
the Mecca,
entertainment, right? But as far as location shooting and as far as equipment and as far as talent, there's a lot of there's growing pools, and people forget that the reason that they moved, the film industry moved to the West Coast to begin with, was because they didn't have artificial light, and Southern California had more sun than anywhere else in the country. Well, now I brought a light. It's literally, I'm holding up my hands for those who are listening. It was literally this big. It fit into a small little case that I packed everything into. And that's another thing, right? Technology is miniaturized, and you don't need to have. This thing was this big.
Oh yeah,
dude. I want to say it's like 1,000 watts. It was so powerful. Like, we used it to just for fill light, exterior wise.
Yeah. At
10%, it was almost too much, and that stuff didn't exist obviously back in the 20s and 30s when the industry moved out there. They moved out there. The original studios were glass ceiling studios, so that they could use the light and control the sound. Well, now you don't really need that anymore. No. The equipment's different. So, yeah, that is pretty cool, man. And you mentioned the Russo brothers, like, and the talent pool, where you've got to be willing to. This is my opinion. I'll say it's not a directive, but especially in a place like, the Warren Youngstown or Canton, Akron, or even Cleveland. I mean, Cleveland's a bigger city, but it's a smaller big city. You've got to be willing to, this is for all the young and old, but the film students out there, people that are just looking again, like, don't hold yourself in such high regard that you can't crew on a job for somebody else. Like, even if the project isn't something, I've worked on some projects where, like, I was a Steadicam operator on it, or I was just a background player, or I was a PA, or I was a, like, it's cyclical. If you do a good job on someone's project and they appreciate it, and typically we're dealing with lower budgets here, then when your project is up, hopefully they'll have the same philosophy, and it'll be a little bit of a payback, and they'll help you out. And I found that to be, true for me. It's not always true. Sometimes you run across somebody that's like, They think that stereotypical like director is supposed to make you cry or supposed to yell, "This is how you lead."
That's the worst.
No, dude, no one wants to work like that.
No. And then, when you get on those projects, I mean, probably the first thing I ever learned as a PA when I started in Chicago is like, you don't want to say no to anything. Like, so.
Unless they tell you to drop your pants.
That's
then
true.
it's probably you don't want to say.
I was, luckily I wasn't on those kind of shows, so we're good. But so you don't want to turn down work. If you can work, you want to work, right? But you never know who you're going to meet on that set, because that could lead to your next job, to your next job, to your next job, kind of thing.
Yep.
And vice versa. Then you also kind of get those favors and, have that stuff down the line when you are shooting a passion project or, something that you care about. Then people will also kind of be bought in, and then you also learn kind of your style of like who you want to work with and the type of people you want to work with, kind of thing. Because I'll still work with crazy people. Like, I was just in West Virginia last week, and God bless the EP. Like, he's telling me how tight the budget is, but he rents a Maserati SUV to drive around for a week. Like, is the budget that tight? Like, what are we trying to do here?
Yeah.
So, but it is what it is sometimes. The biggest thing on sets for me is like safety. You want to have a safe place. You don't want to put people in a dangerous situation, because at the end of the day, we're making movies and we're doing it because we love it. We love what we're doing. I mean, all this stuff is cool. I mean, like when I was in college, I was laying asphalt for my cousins. It was like the worst job in the history of jobs. Now we get to like pretend to lay asphalt if we wanted to, or whatever. We're making movies. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but it's fun. It's exciting. It's creative. New people, tell a message. And hopefully inspire. But so you gotta be safe on set. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing, because then you get things like that stupid Rust movie. Like,
oh yeah,
like that stuff's awful. Or like the girl on the train tracks. Like, that's just somebody not being responsible.
Not paying attention to the details.
Well, but that director, even for the train, is like pushing them to be in an unsafe situation. So
I'm not aware of the train.
It's where the camera girl got killed. The
train
coming through.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
what was she doing? She was standing there shooting while the train was coming?
The director like pushed them on a live train track, and then like they couldn't get off this bridge fast enough, and it was just tragic. But those are the things, like, if it doesn't make sense, like, you should not do it. Like, but that's back to that, like, yelling director who wants to, like, have everything his way. Like,
right.
Sometimes
you got to suffer for your art, but you shouldn't die for it.
No.
Or you shouldn't get hurt for it.
Absolutely not. So that's why I kind of like the younger generation now, because they'll kind of stand up for themselves a little bit. But they also need to learn, like, the hard work, too. There's a balance. Like, somebody telling you to take the trash out isn't like them being mean to you. It's like they need you to take the trash out.
Right.
But, if they're telling you to stand in front of like a moving traffic that you don't have permits for, like, you can say no to that. Like, that's good. But it's crazy.
Well, I want to talk about a couple of cool projects that you've recently, some that you've recently worked on and some not so recently. You've done a lot of work with the Football Hall of Fame in Canton. And you recently won an Emmy for being a producer on the Marion Motley story. Tell us the name of it, how you got involved in it, and for folks who aren't familiar with Marion Motley, like, what was that about, and how'd that project go, and where can they see it?
So it's crazy that I win the Emmy on the thing that probably was put together as the least structurally sound of making a movie ever, right? Like, complete passion project. And I'm being the producer and co-director from that film. So it literally started like from the Palace Theater, which we do the film festival stuff and the different film events there, which we have one coming up this Thursday, or next Thursday, the 19th, which would be fun. But it was a conversation this guy Derek Gordon had with the executive director and Georgia Paxos, that, what would be a great movie is like nobody really knows about who Marion Motley is. And she's like, oh, talk to James. And then like we had a conversation, and I was like, I didn't know who Marion Motley was. And he went to Canton McKinley and he played football, and there's an award named after him, and nobody really understands, when they think of running backs from the Cleveland Browns, you think Jim Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Well, without Marion Motley, there's probably no Jim Brown. Marion Motley ended up being a Pro Football Hall of Famer. He was on the All-Decade or All-Century team last, century or whatever. He averaged like 8 yards a carry. Like, he was a beast. Like, and most importantly, though, he helped reintegrate professional football. So he was one of the 4 guys that reintegrated professional football. 2 went to the Cleveland Browns, and then 2 were in the Los Angeles Rams. But the true players were for Paul Brown, and he wanted Marion Motley. So we kind of like segue his life and kind of give him his just due. Is why we wanted to tell that story mostly.
Well, Marion Motley's black.
Correct.
And he was kind of gets credited, from, in this film. I didn't know who he was either.
Yeah.
But he's one of the guys that kind of shined a light on racial inequality in the NFL at that particular time frame.
Oh, 100%. Oh, there was, it was an all-white league before, those guys, broke the color barrier, more or less. And then, it was kind of those trials and tribulations of everything he went through. And just kind of how he got where he got. Because, a lot of African Americans at the time, had the Great Migration, and that's how they moved up north. And then there was opportunities of like the steel mills and everything here, and that's, kind of how those communities have happened. And then just getting those, he was born in Georgia, ended up in Canton with his parents or whatever. His parents originally didn't even want him to play football. Like, I think he I don't recall 100%, but he used his aunt's or uncle's shoes or something to even go to practice the first day, like in junior high or something. So, it just, football has such a weird effect on people in this community, and just kind of I'm going to just backtrack because I lost my thought. What were you talking about? I was like, blah, 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 blah.
No, it was
I haven't
good,
talked
man.
about Marion Motley forever.
No, it was good. That's what we were talking about, like
Yeah.
the racial integration kind of stuff with him and why he was important.
Yeah, it was, not only was he a good guy, and he was just kind of like, he didn't look for all the NFL at the time, too, wasn't like a big star-driven league, right? And football was second or third to baseball and other sports in America at the time. But even they say, like, Jackie Robinson would probably never got an opportunity if those 4 guys didn't play in the NFL.
Oh, wow.
Because, they came to watch, how fans interacted and whatever, and that's what gave Jackie Robinson the opportunity, which is crazy to think about. Like, so they broke it a year before baseball broke the color barrier, which is kind of a big deal.
Yeah, that doesn't get enough just due in the historical context. We always talk about, everybody knows Jackie Robinson.
Yeah.
But nobody knows these 4 guys until this film.
Yeah, so this thing was a great opportunity. He was a Camp McKinley kid, went on to the Naval Academy. Actually, he went to get drafted, and then Paul Brown called and had him go to the Naval Academy. So he played for the Naval Academy, big college games there. Then when Paul did the Browns, Marion was a call, and so was Willis out of Columbus. And those guys, just dominated. Those were the years that they dominated the American Football League.
Wow.
The other big thing, too, is we kind of wanted it to be like a Mr. Smith went to Washington kind of story, too. Let me backtrack even more. So, once I talked to Derek Gordon, I was like, the first phone call I'm going to make is my buddy Sean Horgan. His dad is, at the time, was the VP at Pro Football Hall of Fame. He's a historian. So Sean's also a fellow filmmaker. And so we're like, let's kind of work on this. And, it became like conversations in the living room. And, how can we do this? Is it an animation? Is it whatever? But we knew it was an important story to tell. And then I picked up Warren's own David Lee Morgan Jr., because the other important part, too, is I don't want it to be all white perspective, right? I can't tell somebody else's story without understanding or like having a voice in the room. And David, being a sports writer, also being a black dude, right, is important to have that aspect of the storytelling. He was an integral part of making this movie as well. And his family is also close to Paul Warfield, who from Warren was in the movie as well. And then we got Eric Lockery, who's a big McKinley fan. He was a year behind me in high school. He was a journalist major in college. I'm an historian, through and through from the McKinley stuff. Very helpful. And then later on, we brought in an editor, David Jingo, who kind of helped, shape it kind of in post too, which was great. Because that story was not like, we were able to shoot some of the guys during like a Pro Football Hall of Fame weekend, like Steve White and those guys were in town from NFL Network. Then we would piggyback and we'd shot some other like doc stuff for the Black College Hall of Fame. But while we were there, we were able to like get a couple other questions from some of the Hall of Famers that were there. And then like just when anything kind of happened, like we were able to grab a camera and go, more or less. I mean, it was wild. There was no production schedules. We're basically like, this is a story I want to tell. Let's see how much stuff we can get.
Yeah, gather it organically and put it together.
And it turned out good. I mean, PBS believed in us. They financed, because the budget for that was like nothing. It was maybe like $5,000.
Oh, wow.
From them. But we had an opportunity to shoot at the Bengals facility and interview the family that runs the Bengals now. So, and that was incredible. And they just like opened up, because when the youngest Brown was a child is when his dad, Paul, coached these guys. And he remembers playing like cards with them, because like he's a little kid, so he didn't go out to dinner with the team or whatever. And since these guys were like the black guys, like they weren't allowed to leave the hotel because it could be dangerous for them, like, if they were down south or whatever. So they all he grew up with these guys, right? So he's probably like your son's age or younger, and they're playing cards in the day, just having a good time and laughing. And like he teared up talking about growing up with Marion. Like, it was very emotional. I mean, it was amazing interview. To be able to interview an NFL owner, but also like to get personal and understand like Marion Motley had such an effect on this guy's entire life. It's wild.
Where can Prodders check that out? It's on demand on PBS now, or where?
It might be open to stream, like even free on their website. I think it's pbswesternreserve.org, I believe. But yeah, all their that project should be on there.
Yeah.
Which is pretty wild. And what's cool is that project also got distributed nationally. So like for Black History Month, somebody in Maine might be watching this, or New Mexico or California, so at least we're getting that story out. Since the film, there was an effort led by people to get a statue created of Marion Motley. So as you pull into the park that leads into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, there's a big statue of him.
That's awesome.
So it's a nice remembrance of him that way. And like I was there for that opening day, and like his family was so appreciative and just at awe that some people came together to do this for their grandfather, or uncle, or cousin, or whatever. Like, because the guy meant a lot, but he wasn't he wasn't that celebrity guy. He wasn't looking for attention. Like after he got out of the league, worked regular jobs. Sometimes he'd have his mail delivered at the Hall of Fame, because Hall of Famers would do that back in the day. Just like, send my mail to the Hall of Fame because I'm a Hall of Famer. Like, okay. The best story, one of my favorite Marion Motley stories is he came back to talk to like a bunch of high school kids or something. Probably for like a football practice or something. And a kid was like, Marion, we just want to know, like, how did you get here today? Thinking he's going to tell him like hard work, only study hard. Marion's like, I left my house. I took a right on this avenue. I got on 77 South. I got off over here, and I'm right here right now. And the kid's like, what? Like, but that was the kind of guy. He was just regular guy, like, you know.
That's
like,
cool. Is he?
He's deceased. He died in the 90s. I believe 99, actually. Because he was inducted, I think, in 65. I believe. I should know these things, but don't quote me.
Yeah, that's all right. We won't hold it against you if your dates are incorrect.
Yeah, that's where I go to the historians. I'm all about the story. That's why it's good to have the historians. That's why you need a good group of people. The two Warren connections, though, was James Wells did the voiceover. He's been the voice of the Raiders.
Oh, cool. I
Which
didn't
is
know
pretty
that.
well. Yeah, he did a great job. And then he was actually asked, they hosted the Emmys this year in Cleveland, and they asked him to do some voiceovers for their promos because they loved his voice so much.
Nice.
So, I mean, what a great dude. And then David Lee Morgan Jr., who was part of it, we mentioned before, but he has also since written a book about Mary Motley and is kind of like on a little book tour right now.
Oh, cool.
Getting the word out. So we, kind of captured that story in film. Hopefully should live forever. We're able to get a statue made, of him. And then now there's going to be books and, other stuff. So, it's really important. The big thing is, and why I thought the Mary Motley story was important, is that you have a guy, from Canton, Ohio, from Camp McKinley, that's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and nobody really even knows that, right? Like, we celebrate Hall of Famers every year in Canton, but we kind of like forgot our own to some degree. Like Paul Warfield even has a statue at the the stadium here.
Sure.
But it's so important that kids have somebody to look up to and be like, if they did it, like, why can't I?
Sure.
Or like, there's a support system that exists in the community that you want those people to achieve. You want the children to achieve like greater heights because they see the people that walked before them. Because Canton's pretty urban. Like, God, I mean, I grew up in a house that was, like any of the houses. They're the old like steel mill houses. Like, you're just kind of you're getting by, and you might have dreams, but like, how do you believe you get there? Or do something that you love to do or that you care about, and that's how, because you have somebody to look up to and somebody who's paved that way. And that's why that Mary Motley story was so important.
Yeah, you're like, if that guy could do it, I could do it too, maybe.
Yeah.
I think it's great that you are purpose-driven in the stories that you tell, and it's always nice to see the fruits of those labors displayed, not just from a win on an award or financial success, but you get to see real awareness or real change created because of a project that you're working on, shining the light on something that maybe didn't have the light shined on it. We did a TBI documentary years ago, which I just recently found online. I thought it had gotten shelved, and Julie Smith, who was our development director here for the better of 10 years pre-COVID, had sent me a text around Christmas time, and it was a project. Sometimes you get these projects, and you may start on them in one capacity, and your role changes or your role grows as the project continues. And sometimes because of that, there's, like in any job, there's personalities you have to deal with, and that particular project maybe how I felt didn't like end. Well, it didn't really end the way that we had hoped for, and it moved on. And she sent me this text on this website, and I saw it, and I was like, oh, that's cool. They must have done something, with this movement about trying to get TBI, the awareness of traumatic brain injury and PTSD out. And for whatever reason, I was cleaning out my phone, and like sometimes I'll have like so many windows open from searches, and I'll keep them open because I want to go back to it. So that must have been one of them. And I went back to it, and I didn't realize I had scrolled down. And I was like, oh, there's our film. But it was edited some of the stuff was edited out and they changed a little bit of the music and whatever. But I took some time to watch, not all of it, but I watched the majority of it. And they used, probably 80% of the stuff that we had shot and we had created. And because of that, because of that project, they've raised awareness. They started veterans courts in Ohio, here in Youngstown. It was the first veterans court that was actually started here. They raised awareness. They changed some of the tech and the protective gear that these soldiers were wearing, and they had developed more robust ways of detecting whether someone had a TBI or had PTSD from that a concussive injury from blast waves. So it's kind of neat to see, like, film is a very powerful medium, whether it's fiction or whether it's a dramatic narrative or a documentary film. Those things can really make changes. Like, even if you look back, like, from the largest scale of like Schindler's List to a smaller scale of a movie about social reform, Hotel Rwanda, and to see how those two artistic projects in retelling historical tales shines the light, and people start to now care about something that maybe they didn't care about before because they weren't aware of it. You made a film a couple years ago. I don't know the date, so you can fill us in. But you were a producer and animator on a film called Dog by Dog.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about that. I just discovered this, in doing the research for the show. But I watched the trailer. I was like, man, what a cool thing. Like, it's talking about dogs being kept in shelters and how sometimes they're not kept in very savory conditions and how the animals can suffer.
So the connection to that all started, the director and producer from that, the main producer from that film is from Chicago, Christopher Grimes. He had done a film called A Second Knock at the Door, which is basically how military gets shot by like friendly fire, where it might be a bullet from U.S. troops or whatever. Just kind of happens in war zones. And there was a soldier that passed away from Canton, and that's why they wanted to. He had interviewed his mom, and kind of told part of that story in that film, and that's how we connected. And we played his film for the film festival, which just kind of organically happened. So we began a friendship, and he wanted some help with this Dog by Dog documentary, which kind of shines a light on the humanity of puppy mills, and how people are pushing out all these dogs, but like they're just in terrible like places, like barns, and stuck in cages all day, and they just breed them and get rid of them, and it's really an awful thing. But so that's how I got involved in the project. So we're able to shoot some undercover footage in Ohio, shot some stuff in Amish country in Ohio. We shot at a pet store where, like, they're trying to give you like this dog has this pedigree and all this other, it's from this breeder, and you can literally track it back to a puppy mill, and just like how the government even works or certifies dogs with like the USDA and different things of that nature. So just that awareness of the cruelty of animals, more or less. And then I had an editor that I work with that was able to animate some of the scenes as well. So we worked with him from Canton as well. But the project turned out great. It went so far as to Ricky Gervais's, the actor.
Yeah.
He aired it on Parliament floor because they have a lot of problems with puppy mills and that stuff there too. So it's pretty wild. It made it all the way to England.
That's awesome. Is that project available? I mean, can you see that anywhere? Is it streamable?
It was on Netflix for a while, Prime Video, I believe. So you just have to Google it.
Yeah, I have to check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that trailer was really good. I was like, oh man, this is cool.
Oh, and it was amazing because they also did like a self-distribution thing at first. So like all the Ohio, like we did like Cincinnati, Columbus, Cleveland. I was at all those premieres, and then there was an opportunity. I went out to Phoenix when they had a Phoenix premiere, and I was able to talk about the film and that whole thing, which was awesome. But it was a cool thing.
Nice. What's on tap coming up? You know, you go back in your past, you got a lot of stuff you've been working, you know, that you worked on in the past. I got a one bone to pick with you. Yeah. So, you know, Waters had, you know, when Waters moved back from California to Canton, and then he moved to Warren, we lived together for about a year, maybe a little bit longer.
A little bit longer.
And Two Ticks was like in the back. We had a duplex.
Yeah.
I was in the bottom. Waters was upstairs, and Two Ticks, the offices were like in the back of the duplex.
Oh, yeah.
So we would just wake up and get to work, sometimes in our robes and whatever. But anyways, James had, you know, a lot of great stories, especially for at the time or right previous to that, I was teaching film at my high school alma mater, and I would get kids in the summertime. Not that I would get them. They would.
Yeah.
They wanted to, you know, hey, can I work for you before I go to college? Or sometimes they'd come home in the summer from college and work for me. And so, you know, James
Schreiber.
Yeah, Schreiber and I already mentioned Tony Batty. And anyways, there's a great group of kids, but you know, he would always tell us these stories about, like, you know, working with like Ali Larder and the Doritos chick, and worked on these movie video, you know, these music videos. And so I was going through Internet Movie Database, where if you know, if you're not familiar with it and you're a listener and you want to find out what somebody worked on, or you know, what someone's screen credits are, your favorite actor, director, or whatever, or even who represents them, you can go on imdb.com. So I went on imdb.com, you know, prior to the show.
I don't even know what's on there. So
yeah, so I'm going to tell you, because I got a bone to pick with you, okay? So I'm looking, I'm like, oh, man, that's cool. I watched the Dog by Dog trailer, and then some of the projects I knew about, you know, we keep in touch pretty frequently. And I'm looking, I'm like, Shaka Khan. Man, this dude worked, this was in 2018. It said Shaka Khan music video. Now, this is one of my favorite
I did not
80s.
work on a Shaka Khan music video.
Well, listen,
that's amazing.
It's in there. It's on your list. I was like, this dude worked on Shaka Khan, didn't call me, didn't even call me. You know, I feel for you. You know that song?
Well, if I get a Shaka Khan music video, I will.
You better call me.
You will be the first person there.
I don't think she's performing.
We'll bring her out of retirement.
Yeah.
This podcast might bring her out of retirement. Shaka Khan, if you're listening, if this makes it to you,
Shaka, you're the best.
We'll make your video.
You're the best. I love some of her music.
It'll be the Jim Fogarty love story.
Yeah. I'll have another story to tell besides my Joan Jett story.
That is hysterical that is on my IMDb.
Yeah, I was looking at it, I go, man, this cat worked on Shaka Khan's video, and I didn't even. What about
I thought you were gonna Fred Savage me, because we did.
No, I remember that story.
When I lived in LA, we worked with Fred Savage for a project.
No, there was a you also directed the TV special for Nick Cave.
Yeah, we did. With not
PBS.
the British singer, but the artist from Chicago.
Yeah.
So, which was that was kind of one of my favorite pieces so far, because that kind of told a story of like a community movement for the Summit Lake in Akron. Summit Lake used to be a very like prosperous area, and then like they had a water park and roller coasters, and in the 1920s. And then just kind of like a lot of areas, you know, like would just kind of get forgotten about. People move away. Then it became like, you know, like transient housing and, you know, just kind of a poor area of Akron that people forgot about. But they have this beautiful lake, and the community, like the people in that community really care about it and are trying to like re-energize it. But in a way that's not gentrification, where it's like they're heard. Because they're heard, because they're involved and they're a part of the process. So Nick, fantastic artist, does a lot of like movement pieces. Like he's internationally known as an artist. Was able to put on this the sound suit movement dance performance that really like kind of told the story of Summit Lake. You know, through that week, because they did all their practices there, and it was a performance specifically for the community, which was neat. And like just seeing like the gratitude that that community got recognized a little bit, and that they were heard and involved in the process. So it wasn't so much of a gift, but it was like the arts community kind of heard them, recognized what they wanted, and then they were all able to like bring this thing together. Like it was kind of cool.
What's the big difference between directing like a TV special versus directing a music video or live TV, or a TV performance that's in a live setting versus something we go cut. Let's go back to one, and we're gonna reshoot that.
Oh yeah, I mean that for
more
that
pressure.
Yes and no. I think it's more planning, right again, right? Like, so it's like for that piece, there's a lot of interviews throughout, and we want like docu-style during the week, and then obviously when you get the final performance, you just kind of get one shot to get all that stuff. So you just you're planning out all the camera moves, ahead of time. You just make sure, because it was in a gymnasium, so like we didn't have a ton of room to work, but I think I had 6 to 8 cameras.
Oh wow!
So we're able to capture multiple angles.
All manned, or like some like static like this, just getting wide shots.
Mostly manned, and then like some like a GoPro up high, or something of that nature. So it's just kind of planning appropriately for that kind of stuff, and having the right amount of people ideally to capture it. Yeah, that was a neat project.
Yeah,
and that dude was amazing. Like, I can't say enough nice things about Nick Cave.
What's on tap coming up, in the next 6 months, a year? I mean, we, not everybody knows this, but a lot of times things sit in development for a lot of times as you're, as it's kind of, you're building the project or building the resources around the project. And sometimes things get started and then they stall out, and you go and work on another project and they get started up again. I mean, you got any passion projects that are happening like that, or anything that's percolating, that's rising to the top?
I think like after, because like I said, the Centric series just wrapped. So like that took, goodness, 3 years from like start to, to think about, to even shoot it, to like put it together. Like we shot it all the way through once, and then we went back and added a host, like, because it just wasn't working.
Yeah. What cities besides Youngstown?
Let's see, we have Sharon, Pennsylvania.
Oh yeah.
Canton, Akron.
Did you guys happen to interview Mike Lysak from Sharon? Owns warehouse sales. He redeveloped all of Sharon pretty much.
I think we did Jim Landino. I don't know if you know Jim Landino.
I don't. Okay.
Goodness, now you put me on the spot.
Yeah, sorry. All right, so Sharon, Youngstown. I interrupted you.
It's okay. Sharon, Youngstown, Canton, Akron, Alliance, and Kent.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So you can see a lot of different variety throughout. And there was also, like, part of the hard part of all those cities is trying to, like, research and figure out, like, who did what.
Who's
and,
who,
yeah. Like I said, a lot of characters. Anybody could be a character. So I think it's, finding out like what worked or, didn't work in that series. But I think they all got good response, I'd imagine, for PBS. So
I can't wait to watch, especially the Youngstown one, because I know a few folks in it. I was laughing a couple minutes ago. We were telling a story because I had a flashback, excuse me, to a client that we were working on at the time, and he wanted to like almost like undercover boss, kind of undercover reality TV. He was he was going to ask his girlfriend to marry him, he's going to make her his fiance, and he hired us to go and like, he had this elaborate setup where it was a surprise, and then like all these people would be there for the party afterwards, and we were there ahead of everybody to capture this moment in the dark, terribly lit, hiding in the bushes, and undercover videoing. This is the shit that you do sometimes when you're just
whatever pays the bills.
Whatever pays the bills. And he gets on his knee and asks her to marry him. And I just was thinking about that project and the ridiculousness of not. I mean, he was very sentimental, and I'm not knocking that, but the ridiculousness of us being like in the bushes, hiding like ninjas, trying to get the shot.
And I can't hide too well. I mean, I'm like the
You're a big
size
dude.
of a gazelle. Like a bear coming there. Like, there's a bear in the woods.
Those were good times, man.
Oh, goodness. What other fun stuff? We made it rain cars. We were ahead of our time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. Yeah. That was like Ron Burgundy before Ron Burgundy.
Yeah, those are the best. You can probably cut the spot into this.
I forgot. You know what I was thinking about? I was going to text Matt Smith ahead of time. Shout out Matt Smith. He's in Brooklyn now. He was another creative partner in crime, an integral team member at Two Ticks, and still is. But he was like the effects guy. He made it rain cars. I was thinking I was going to text him today and say, hey, do you have any of that old stuff? Could you send me any of that? Like, I was thinking about that. I was thinking about PMD Builders.
Oh, yeah. The talking, that was the PMD Builders was cool. But we also did the talking heads for the...
oh, my God. Colonial Gardens.
Yes.
Holy shit, I forgot about that. We shot that in his apartment down here.
Yeah.
We had, I forget the guy's name. He was real cool, but he had these dolls that were like mannequins that were made up, and he had them in his store. His store was Colonial Gardens. I think that place is closed down. And people would come in and they'd buy, like decorations for their house, seasonal decorations for fall or winter or spring, flowers or fake flowers or whatever. And he had these two old women dolls. And I don't know how
they were so fucking creepy.
They were creepy as hell, but we pitched him on the idea. He wanted these dolls. He actually had shot a commercial with another company using the dolls, and it was not done very well. And so we're like, well, we can animate these dolls and make them talk and turn them into characters in your commercial. And we shot it green screen in Smith's apartment with like fishing wire.
Oh, yeah.
And they were doing this, and then Smith animated in After Effects them talking. Did we do their voices?
I don't even remember.
It was funny as
hell. That was hysterical. And they aired and people love that shit. But
yeah.
We also did some like sentimental ones where like people are putting like the kid bringing his coins to the counter to buy his mom flowers or something.
Yeah, what was that? Oh, that was that same client.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. That was good. It was a poem.
Yeah.
We wrote it as a poem, and it was a rhyming poem. It was a 30-second ad, and it was like, yeah. My nephew was in that.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, I forgot. What's up, Mario Pisciotti? I forgot that he was in that thing.
And then, like, I would cast my cousins, like for stuff. Like, just whatever. And would be like, you want to be in a commercial?
Keep it in the family.
Yeah.
We of course, I got to shout out O'Donnell's, man.
Oh, my God.
We did a commercial, we won a little award for a commercial for O'Donnell's where we hired, I forget his name. He was actually a really cool guy. We hired this midget to play a leprechaun.
Small person.
Yeah. Oh, they're not called midgets anymore.
Yeah, I don't think
I'm
so.
sorry. Yeah. Leave it to me to be politically incorrect. I meant no harm.
My wife has brought that out to me. She's a very good social warrior. I think that's a credit to most of my success is that she's one calm me down and then put me in a nice sphere of correctness.
Yeah, that's good. That's good because this little person,
I think so.
He was a great dude. He played the leprechaun.
Yeah.
Lucky. For O'Donnell's was if you're from here you remember it, but anyone that's not or you're too young or too old to care, was an Irish bar a buddy of mine had opened and they franchised it and went to different places. Recently shut down. Did you happen to know about that?
No.
Yeah, so it recently they shut them down in Youngstown. It was the last O'Donnell's that they had downtown Youngstown, and Christian had some tax issues, and I'm not trying to air it. It's all public record. It was on the thing, but that commercial was a lot of fun to shoot. We shot that at Lincoln Park.
Oh yeah.
You, Zeke, Chucky Parks.
He
just stopped over my house. Oh, he wanted me to tell you hello.
That's awesome.
I couldn't remember that, man. That's so funny because he came by my house today, and he's just kind of like checking in, like wellness check, kind of, hey, how you doing, kind of thing. He was driving in the area, and I said, I got a buddy of mine on the show today. He was like, oh, who do you have on? I was like, James Waters. I said, I think you might. He was like, hey, I remember James. He was like, tell him I said hi. I didn't remember until right now I was talking about it.
Yeah, because he's like, Lucky you go left. Yeah. And then he throws the ball.
And Lucky hits my boy Zeke
knocks him out.
in the private area, okay? Oh, that was good times, man. That was fun.
You got to air that, too. That's a classic.
Yeah, I have that somewhere. I do have that one somewhere. It might be online. What else, though? What kind of projects are you looking forward to work on? I mean, here we are. We're we're 20 plus years into production life.
Oh yeah.
James taught at Stark State.
Yep, for a little while.
I taught, I taught at high school. I mean, we both had these kind of like similar ways, but 20 years, you accumulate all these projects, and we're still relatively young.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we're on the wrong side of 45, but we're still relatively young. Are there still projects that like something that you still want to do that's a passion project, or are there things that you're working on now that are passion projects that are challenging?
I will say what I'm hoping for. Like the MGM spot to me, kind of circle back to that since it's kind of most recent. Like really putting a lot into that because I would like to kind of get the opportunity to direct some more because I've produced for years. So, from being around on stuff that's been like Super Bowl commercials to bigger regional ads for like I produced all the holiday spots for Myers last year.
Nice.
I'm like the Ohio producer for like the University Hospital commercials that come through.
Awesome.
But like I really want the chance to direct more. I've kind of got the taste to like I've been around it enough and like kind of taken in, other director stuff to be able to like, how can I do this better to some degree?
Sure.
Because it goes back to like the directors that yell and scream and act all stupid. Like, I don't want that. Like, especially for this MGM project, I wanted everybody to feel appreciated. I made sure it was 10-hour days. I wasn't trying to kill people. Most commercials run 12 hours, 14, 16, like, could run forever. 10-hour days, easy outs, like planned to perfection. When everybody left on that one, I don't think I'll do this for every big spot, but we had like a little gift for every crew member, a little thank you card. Like we wanted to do it classy because
the nice touches.
Yeah, because everybody's collaboration. I realized like I'll never forget working with Bernie Mac on a Pepsi commercial in Chicago. When he rapped and he was late running to the airport, he took the time to shake everybody's hand on set, like, because he realizes without, bottom to top,
yep,
he doesn't get the opportunity. And that really left, like, a taste on me. Like, just, that's who I want to be like. Like, that's, a lot of this business, you can get used and abused and, pushed away for the next one or, that kind of stuff. But like, his sincerity and grace for, because he came from nothing in Chicago. Like he lived in like the ghetto of ghettos in Chicago growing up. And then he, found a lot of success. So to see that kind of thing from a celebrity, I want people to have that experience when they're walking on a bigger show of mine or whatever. So that was kind of the goal for the MGM. I have some connections still in Chicago. And then I have a Boston producer, EP, that ideally, once this spot's done, they can even shop around to kind of like directors reel it for me to give me some other opportunities. So that's what I'm kind of hoping for.
Nice.
But we'll see. And then other than that, like, it's weird. Like, we can go downstairs for lunch and then, like, the waitress could be like, I have an idea. And we'll be like, cool, let's do it. Like,
right.
Like, it's weird how it happens. There's nothing's burning inside of me yet to get out, but I'm sure something will pop up.
Yeah.
You know how it goes.
Yeah. Well, it's like my family will ask, like, hey, are you busy? I'm like, well, I'm always busy.
Yes.
Like, and it's not, they're asking like, are you busy with work? And I'm always as busy as I want to be with work. But when I don't have work, I'm busy doing the podcast, or I'm busy writing, or I'm busy trying to develop something, a passion project or otherwise. And it's like, it's funny how the trajectory of your desire in this business changes, and you start changing it over a little bit. And I recently, of course, James produced a spot for PBS and directed a spot for PBS that my son was in, which
he was awesome.
That was a great. That spot actually opened another door for him to be in another commercial, and he's like, I get this call from my buddy, and he's like, maybe it was a text, and he's like, hey, is your son still, does he still want to do is he still going to act and do different stuff? And I said, well, yeah, man, he wants to. He's like, well, I got a gig for him if he wants it. And this was actually went on for a couple of months, and the project kind of wavered for a minute and then got brought back up, several months later. And he said, hey, I still have this project, and, oh, cool. He says, non-speaking role. He's playing a guy's son who he hasn't seen for a long time, and they're reunited. And I was like, okay, yeah, he could do that. He's got to hug this guy. And I actually I didn't know at the time, but I knew the actor that was playing the dad. We'd worked on other projects together. Again, small world kind of thing. And so that was cool. So he sends me the thing. He goes, it's a paid gig, and I think he got like $250 or $300.
Oh, that's huge for an 11-year-old, right?
And he's only 10, so 10, he was 9 at the time, and it's not like this is like a 2-hour job.
Yeah.
He just shows up. We got some clothes for him. We got some wardrobe for him. They like, oh, hey, no labels and that kind of stuff. I'm like, he don't have anything that's like, my wife shops for him. That's all this kid has is labels, okay? It might be coming from TJ Maxx, but he's labeled out the wazoo. Nike, Adidas, Polo.
Everything.
So she went and spent like $18 and got some some non-label clothes. And he did the gig, and he walks out of there with the paycheck in his hand. We're there 2 hours, and I go, wow, dude. And at the time, I was still it was last year, I was working with Bill Shotton on The Abiding Nail, which was a paid gig for me to act. And I go, dude. And great thing about Shotton is he'll work the 10-hour day, but he won't let the actor work the 10. And that's why I like having your own company, because like, I don't want to work more. I shot a 12-hour day a couple weeks ago, last weekend or 2 weekends ago at Put-in-Bay. And dude, driving home, I was dog tired. Oh, yeah. And it's only an hour and a half drive. But I was,
we're not 20 anymore.
Amen, dude. Yeah. I had to stop off at the rest stop and get coffee out of because Starbucks had closed. I got Burger King coffee, which was terrible, by the way. But just to make it home. So anyways, he gets this check, and I'm like, you just made $125 an hour.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, sweet. I go, dude, you made more on this commercial in 2 hours than I'm making for a full day of 5 hours. Bill's shoots for like 3 to 5 hours. You're making more money than and you don't have memorize any lines. And he's like, yeah, it's pretty cool. So that Abiding Nail was like the second film that I had acted on with Bill. And I'd acted on a few other projects or whatever. But I never wanted to do that. I never wanted to I'd be in front of the camera if it was a necessity.
Yeah.
Someone dropped out of the project, or they needed some, we don't have enough talent, so jump in and someone else is going to run the camera. But man, what a great opportunity and a great feeling to show up, and the only thing you've got to prep, and it's not like it's the only thing, because there is energy, and there is not for me. I'm not saying I'm bringing talent to this. I'm just grit, right? I'm just like, I don't want anyone to outwork me. So I knew the competition would be high. I knew all my lines.
Oh yeah, you want to come prepared.
You want to be prepared. But that's the only thing you have to worry about.
Yeah.
You don't got to worry about setting up the lights. You don't have to worry about changing the bulb because it blew out. The breaker blew. The sound doesn't work. You're over-modulating because the mic's set too high. The fucking guy's not mixing it right. Whatever the issue is, you don't got to worry about any of that stuff. How's the shot look? Oh, how are we going to match? You had like a lot of those whip pan kind of things in that MGM spot, which is sweet, by the way. It actually kind of reminded me, you mentioned TikTok. It actually kind of reminded me of like P.T. Anderson's first films. He uses that effect in like Magnolia and Boogie.
Oh, yeah,
kind of whip pan kind of, it was, you guys really pull it off well. But I don't have to worry about how any of that stuff. All I got to do is show up,
Hit your mark.
Hit my mark, say my lines, and listens for the director to tell me how to do it different or whatever. And Bill's pretty easy to work with. He was on the show, and I said, man, I said it, there, so I'm not talking shit about him, but I'm like, is this dude even watching what's going on? He'll shoot it like one take, be like, all right, let's move on. I'm like, let's move on. Like, we need another take, man. I think we can get it better. He's like, okay, cool. Like, he's real pliable, real affable. So now, like, I'm thinking, and my buddy Maz that shot the commercial for Jimmy, he sends me this text. He's like, man, I saw that movie. Like, you're really good. And he's like, you interested in doing more? I'm like, dude, send it all my way. Because after lugging gear and, doing all this shit for 20 plus years, this acting thing's kind of like...
Well, let me know. I'll get you on something.
I'm letting you know right now. Yeah. I'm in, dude. I'm
Done.
in. Yeah, I love it. I think it's like, what a fun way to make a living. Like, are you kidding me? And I looked at... I always break things down by like an hourly. To do these indie films... or any indie project, sometimes you're lucky even to get a paycheck, right? You're doing it for your reel, or you're doing it for a friend, or you're doing it for, they're going to feed you, and maybe you signed a deal and you got like a point on the back end or something that you're never going to fucking see.
Ever.
But, you're doing it for whatever it is, for the love of it. But, like when you're getting paid for it, you're like, hey, you feel appreciated. You're like, wow. And, I'm doing like the hourly. I'm like, okay. How much did I make on this an hour? Like, I made $30 an hour. Now, that's not a tremendous amount of money. But, man, like you were laying asphalt for your cousin.
Oh, yeah.
You probably weren't making $30 an hour.
Not even close.
Out in the hot sun, sweating. Oh, yeah. I was in the steel mill. I was working overtime, making $17 an hour. So that's how I justify. I'm like, hell yeah, I'll go act for $30 an hour.
Yeah.
And now my kid's spoiled. He wants $125. What the? No, dude, this is crazy, man.
It is. There's opportunities out there. People want that stuff.
Well, it's fun because if you make it fun and the cast and crew are all in on it together. I mean, I really got to hand it to Bill for putting a cast and crew together that didn't take, not that we didn't take it serious. Everyone took it seriously.
Oh, yeah.
But it wasn't so serious that there were cast and crew members that were like pompous, that were like, I actually was worried at some point because in order to keep myself like in the moment and when in that scene, there's a lot of people want to talk and they're talking to you and I'm just trying to remember my lines. Like I got this 2.5 page scene and I got 18 lines and I don't want to screw up for Bill and have to reshoot it. So I'd be like off on my own. And I always felt like, boy, I hope they don't think like I'm aloof or I'm like trying to act like
you're a pretentious
prick. I just needed to like.
They don't know you that well yet, but when they do, then they can say that about you. But until then, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, right. And I'd be like off on my own, like just trying to memorize my lines. But what a fun this business is. Your dad gave you great advice. This business is. It's really if you surround yourself with the right people, it's really like not working a day in your life.
Yeah, and that's the amazing part. Like Shotton, like I remember, goodness, 20 years ago, he was doing like the horror movies and stuff.
Oh yeah,
and he's like to see his progression. Mm-hmm. But what's amazing though is like he's always been that Pied Piper. Like so, the people that even worked on those films with him, were probably involved in making the film that you did. And the progression isn't necessarily the genre for him. It's the camaraderie and those friendships that he's built, over time. And that's why, people want to work with him and, and it's the light once again, like Shot has an attractive light that like brings people to him and, they trust him. And, at the end of the day, it's fun to watch something you worked on and, see the final product and hopefully, with that movie, you guys should be very proud. Like I watched the link you sent. It's amazing, good story, made in Youngstown, made in Trumbull and Warren, counties. I mean, that's wild. So
yeah, Columbiana.
Yeah,
a couple different locations. It was cool.
But like you're proud of it at the end of the day, right? Like so. That's the other thing. And that's the nice thing about being a creator. Sometimes you just gotta get stuff out of you. I think Kevin Smith made a movie that he hated, but just sometimes you gotta get out of you and move on from it. But we're always creating, which is nice. So rather than destroying, like, you're creating, which is important.
Well, and you're creating with purpose, and I think again that's what sets you apart from other folks out there who are doing it. Because, listen, everybody wants to be, I'm going to say everybody. Not everybody wants to be rich. Everybody wants to be rich, but not everybody wants to be rich and famous. So you get into this business for whatever your motivations are. You to have a purpose-driven sense of production to tell stories that are either stories that are shining light on somebody, like the Marion Motley story or the Dog by Dog. You have a purpose in why you want to tell these stories. Now, obviously, like, the MGM project is a commerce-driven project, but even that, I was talking with. It's a weird story. I was talking with this dude yesterday. I called into Spectrum because my cable bill is like outrageous. And when they brought ESPN back on, they didn't bring Paramount Network. And there's a lot of programs I watch on Paramount. I'm like, man. And I've been thinking about it for years. Like, I'm cutting the cord and I'm going to go, now I still have to. The reason I still have Spectrum is because a lot of my commercials locally in Trumbull County and Mahoning County and Columbia County are on Spectrum.
Oh, yeah.
So I use it as a tax write-off because I got to be able to proof my work for quality control, which I do all the time on TV. So, but I'm like, man, this is way too expensive. I'm going to get rid of HBO and Showtime, and I'm going to just get rid of a lot of stuff. So I called up knowing that they're going to send me to the retention department. Long story short, I ended up saving about $65 a month, ended up being close to $800 a year. And I'm having the conversation with this guy who first gets on the phone, and he's talking, and he's got a little bit, sounded like he had a little bit of a speech impediment, and was a little bit hard to understand. Sounded like he was Asian, which I found out he was. And I'm thinking to myself, when I first heard him, I'm like, is this going to be like one of these experiences where I'm not able to understand what he's saying well enough, or am I going to be, I judged this guy just on his voice.
Oh, yeah.
And he ended up being the sweetest dude. And we ended up having a conversation about being purposeful in our life. Now, I found out, in the hour long I was on the phone of him trying to save me money, he was studying psychology, and which is it's true to me why I wanted to get rid of it. I wanted to save money. Like, I could afford it, but I can't afford it anymore.
If you do that with everything, your kids are not gonna have a house to live in.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, all right, I gotta get rid of this, and he ends up talking, and he says, my purpose I feel like being here as I'm studying to be a psychologist, but my purpose in being here with Spectrum is to help people like you save money so that you can then use that for your son or your family or whatever it is. And I always felt like our purpose, not in doing documentaries about dogs or about traumatic brain injury or about, these things that we're trying to shine light on, to be socially conscious. But when we make a commercial for a mom and pop, a restaurant, or a developer, or a bar, or any of that stuff, so when we make these commercials, you're making them to put money in your pocket, but you're also making them to help that business owner drive more business into his establishment so that he can pay his staff, which puts money in their pocket and feeds their family and his family or her family. So there's like a purpose behind it besides just the commerce. I would always say, like, that's the juice in what we do. Like,
oh, yeah.
I love to, obviously you got to have money to live so that you can buy goods and services and all that stuff. That's a great part of it. And, you can make a good living at doing what we do. There's ups and downs, but all in all, if you stick with it and you work hard, you're going to probably make a pretty good living. It's not a bad way to make a living.
Exactly.
But the juice is when you hear back from a client and you're like, dude, everyone came to this sale, or everybody came to this event, or everyone's seeing this commercial, and I'm seeing faces I never saw in here before. And that's the good. Oh shit. Yeah. That's the good.
Get excited.
Yeah, that's the good. I'm wrecking the set because of it. That's the good stuff, that's the juice. I think that's like where you find purpose in doing this kind of thing.
Oh, 100%. And it's also like the clients that you take on, right? Like the nice part about being small and mobile like we are is like we don't have to say yes to everything.
Right.
Right? Like, there's it's like I make no sense. Like I don't have business cards. I don't have a fucking website. I don't have
I don't have business cards either.
any of that shit. Like I end up working somehow. Like it drives my wife nuts. She's like, "Why don't you make a website?" I'm like, "What am I gonna put on it?" Like, because I think half the shit I do is terrible. Like I hate everything I've ever worked on. Right? Like it's like, whatever. Like I'm glad you like it. Like I don't know. I like to make it, and then in my head I'm like, this could be so much better. Like, so it's weird. I'm like an albatross. It makes no.
Well, you're always chasing that perfection.
Yeah.
You always like, I could do that different. Or I think a lot of times, like especially in the early days, I think we took jobs where we were overshooting what our I don't want to say what our talent was, but we were really reaching for something to do something that wasn't the norm because we wanted to look a certain way. We wanted to have a professional feel. We wanted to look like it's especially when we're making 30-second TV ads. We want to make something that looks like it is, that was produced on a higher budget.
Oh yeah, like
right?
something national on a local level. Which I don't want to say is easier to achieve now with gear and all that fun stuff, but but it was like you care about your client, so you want it to have a story. It's not just all informational. Like we've all seen the shitty cable ads that are like, here's some bad text and here's
right.
They didn't turn off any of the sound, and it's you hear the radio in the background, and it's just terrible.
Right.
There's green around their head because they don't key it out right or light them right. It's just we wanted to have higher expectations. I think. That's why we did this colonial guard. Like we wanted to test our limits.
Well, and that's where I'm getting to too. Is like a lot of it was like an experiment. We would say to the client, "Oh, I think we can do this," not knowing if we were even capable of doing it.
Oh yeah.
But somehow it always worked out. It always ended up. I did these attorney spots several years ago, where my brother-in-law again. A family talent pool.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
He plays like a guy that gets hit by a car, and it's like a personal injury spot. And I said, man, I really want to grab people's attention. I want to show him getting hit by a car. And so I pitched the idea to the client, having no idea if this is actually gonna work. And we cart the portable green screen outside, and we shoot it in a way, and we shoot it in here how he falls, and we get a big air mattress and we did actually a series of these. Another guy falls, they're moving stuff, and he falls down the steps. And I'm sending this, and Smith is in Brooklyn at the time, and I'm sending this stuff to him, the rough cuts, and he's gonna key it, and we're like, is this shit gonna work? We told the client it was going to. Oh yeah, we'll shoot it like this and green screen, and they don't really care. They don't even understand half the shit we're saying.
Oh, not at all.
And it's just a gamble. And I think that's another part of like the business where it's like when those things pay off, they don't always pay off, but I would say for the most part they paid off. Raining cars.
Yeah.
Like when those things pay off, you're like, man.
We were ahead of our time for that spot. I'm just going to say like we were ahead of our time.
What's funny? We made that spot for... I don't know if I'm going to mention the client, but we made that spot for an auto client, and they really wanted something different, so we gave them something different. And then I think we only made like a couple of spots for them, and then they started making these like more cookie cutter but real like loud ads. And then they went back. Recently, they went back to those kind of I don't want to call shticky, but
yeah, well, they
kind
got
of shticky ads that they were originally trying to do with us, but I don't think they were ready yet.
No, because they would get calls from people that would watch the news and be like, "What is this?
Yeah,
this is different.
Why is there cars falling from the sky? And
it's supposed to be
they
different.
look like 70s newscasters.
Yeah.
We had you in the mustache and the
fucking
where
great.
the fuck did you get that jacket from, man?
I probably still have it in my closet. I don't
It's
know.
like a plaid.
Yeah.
It was awesome. Yeah.
We made it
Ron
work.
Burgundy. It was like Ron Burgundy.
But
P.
it's
Ron
just
Burgundy.
a play off of like what was current, you know, like
Right.
we were on trend,
Yep.
you know, but they did not see it that way.
No. That's funny. I love that part of this business, like reaching for something that you think is going to, you think you can make it happen, but you don't know.
Oh yeah.
And it's just a grand experiment. I always tell people, like, you know, if I'm talking in front of a college class or talking in front of high school or whatever, you know, you're talking to people and they're like, they introduce you like, no, and this is you know, blah blah blah. He's a media expert, or he's a, and I'm like, I'm always like looking over my shoulder. Who's here?
What?
Oh, you're talking about me?
Oh yeah.
And they're like, how did you do? Or how? I'm like, I have no idea. I'm literally making this shit up as I go.
Yeah.
Like my whole career is just an experiment.
You learn to ask the right questions and to try to get people that are more talented than you to work on stuff with you.
Yeah.
And that's how it works. It's hard for you because like you do a lot of like one man band stuff, like
Well, especially now after COVID.
yeah, like that's not easy to do. You know, where like I would prefer like the minimum I like to go is like a shooter and a sound person.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, I mean it's such a balance. You know. But I mean, it's asking those right questions, like how are we going to figure this out? You know, and it goes back to like never say no to a job kind of thing, but it's never say no as an answer. Like, you know, early on it was like, you know, I'll figure it out. Like
Right.
not, I don't know, no, like those are just like stop signs. Like, and like I almost find myself now, like even with like if I try to bring in like a young PA or something, people are just like no, or you know, to a question. You're almost like, all right, I don't think you're gonna make it. Like, you know, you have to be able to say, even you can almost say like, I'm not sure, but I'll figure it out.
Right.
Or you know, or I'll figure out who the right person to ask is to get that answer or to make this happen. Because that's the only way that you know these movies happen.
It's a crazy life we lead, man.
It's wild.
Well, James Waters, where, if someone wants to get a hold of you, watch your projects, maybe get in touch with you to produce a gig, they're not going to find you your business card. Where can they find you? Where can they reach you if you want to be reached? And
They should call Jim Fogarty, and then he can be my agent. That's another way you can make money.
beautiful.
You just get like 20% off the top.
No.
Yeah.
It's only 10.
Okay, even better.
It's
You're
only
hired.
10.
I need an agent.
It's
That's
only
good.
10.
But honestly, just shoot me an email, james@cantonfilm.com. That would probably be the easiest way. You know.
And check out the Canton Palace Theater if you're in the vicinity, man. It's really a cool theater. They've had a lot of great shows there, a lot of great movies there, and that's where the Canton Film Festival is. And it's been there for
We've been
10
doing
years?
stuff for a little bit over 10 years now.
Wow.
Like COVID kind of switched stuff around.
yeah.
And I will transition to a little plug for some of that stuff. We've been doing a lot of like one-off kind of events versus like, it kind of started out as like a shorts kind of segment. But now we're doing some, everybody has a short film festival now, which
Yeah.
is fine. And that's good. But like back to kind of the education moments, I've tried to have like, so like the movie Emily the Criminal that was like high on Netflix for a while.
Okay.
Was killing it. The lady from The Office was in it.
I'm not familiar with it.
Whichever.
Or
But anyway,
The Office, embeddingly.
all is good. All is good. I should look her up, but I'm not that worried about it. But anyways, one of the producer of that film is from Cleveland, and his like right hand man producer is from the Canton area too. Or his wife is from Canton, so like they're very connected. So, we had a chance to show that film, and then we were able to zoom in with, like the lead male actor from Hollywood, and he was kind of talked about the experience.
Oh,
and that kind of
right
stuff.
at the show.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
So we're able to do a couple things like that.
You do a Q&A with somebody that's out of state.
Yeah. But then still Ohio connected, right? So like those producers were from here, and they do a lot of stuff. We had like Mark Myers, who directed My Friend Dahmer.
Oh, yeah.
So we showed My Friend Dahmer last year, and then Myers had talked about like, you know, like his pre-pro process and, you know, the Ohio experience and the Ohio crew and all those things. So that was kind of cool too. And like, he's great. Like he'll reply to messages that I send him, you know, and the guy's got like, you know, movies on Showtime, and it's wild. Like how you end up connecting with these people. Like this fall, like next week, October 19th, we're doing a music and film thing. So I got 5 different music video directors that are, some are local and then some are a little bit bigger. We're going to showcase a music video, talk about how they made it. And then 3 of the 5, I have a couple of the bands that they made the things for that will play a song or two.
Nice.
So it's kind of a whole like creative evening. You know, it's almost like a behind the actor studio.
Yeah.
You know, with unplugged. You know, so it's kind of a hybrid. We'll see how it works out. Like, I don't
sounds
know.
cool.
Never, you know, but yeah, something, just an, you know, an opportunity to be in a historical theater, learn from people that are doing, you know, we're inviting all the high school kids. There's nothing like R-rated or nothing for the music videos. There might be a couple cuss words or something, but I'm sure nothing they haven't heard in high school or college or whatever. But then to say like, well, how did you even come up with this idea? How did you meet the band? How did you do this? You know, so they can start seeing it, you know, back to that Motley stuff. Like, how did you do this? So we can do this, you
right?
know? And then just kind of hopefully keep elevating the talent.
Well, it's great because that theater is really in like a little arts kind of district, if you will.
Oh,
Got
yeah.
some cool, I mean, I haven't been up there for a while, but cool restaurants, little coffee shops, little bars. I think that is so important for like the revitalization of certain areas that, you know, if you look at Pittsburgh, right? Pittsburgh was a big steel town, and then all that money kind of left from the steel industry, and they're like, we got to reinvent ourselves. Well, how are we going to reinvent ourselves? We're going to start with the arts community, museums and things of that nature. Warren's kind of going through a very similar, metamorphosis, if you will. And that's all the time we have, folks.
Yeah, we're done. Bye. Thanks. Bye.
Yep. Bye.
Yeah.
You know, that area is always really cool, and to have those kind of events that may not fit into a particular category or particular box, they may fit into different boxes that are not a, it's not something that's easily defined.
Oh, yeah.
I think those things are cool because something that can springboard from that, from someone who attended, like you're saying, you're just exposing, whether it be young people, old people, someone who likes the arts and always wanted to do it or not do it, you know, like exposing them to something that's unique, and that you're obviously takes a lot of time and energy behind the scenes. People sometimes don't realize that. But to do that, you never know where that ripple from that pebble is going to expand out to. And I just think stuff that you do is very cool. I'm glad that you're still involved in that.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's important. I mean, it's because you think about film in general, like what we do, like, you know, people think art's painting or sculpture.
Right.
Well, the thing that happens with film too, though, is like, you know, you're able to, it's commerce, right? So like you can change the economics of a whole city, you know, through what we do.
Yeah.
You know, so and that's back to, you know, we talked an hour or so ago about like, you know, the competition versus collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
People are collaborating, the more business comes in, the more money comes in, the more you elevate a community. So, I mean, that's ways that people need to look at it as well.
I think I'm going to title this episode The Purposeful Producer. James Waters, super producer, BG alum, Canton McKinley graduate. You're an awesome human being. Let's go get something to eat downstairs.
Yes.
Thanks for coming on today, man.
Anytime. It's a long time coming.
Yeah, we've been talking about this for a couple of years, man. So
We'll do it again. If people like this, let us know, and I'm sure I have a bunch of other ridiculous stories to tell.
We have a lot of R-rated stories that we probably...
Yeah, that will be the extra behind the paywall.
Well, yeah, we'll behind the paywall.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that downstairs.
Oh, boy.
Prodders, until the next time, be cool, stay electrified, and stay kind to one another. You can always check us out for more episodes on theprodcast.net. Please like, listen, subscribe. And if you like what you hear and like what you see, always you can comment on YouTube, or you can rate us on Spotify or our Facebook page. We appreciate it. Share it with your friends, because the more people that listen and like, the more episodes we can do. So until the next time, be cool, be kind, and stay electrified. Adios.